Digging the bitumen out of the ground, squeezing the oil and converting it into synthetic crude is a monumental challenge. It requires vast amounts of capital, Brobdingnagian technology, and an array of skilled workers. In short, it is an enterprise of epic proportions, epic proportions, epic proportions.
A lot of information about the health impacts on wildlife. Certainly we know there are major impacts on wildlife populations through loss of habitat.
You're seeing a string of waterfowl and other birds dying on these tailings ponds all the time. Fish and Wildlife have reported that animals as big as moose drink from these tailings ponds, so you're definitely not keeping the wildlife in those surrounding areas safe.
At 35 million acres, Canada's boreal forest is one of the largest remaining intact forest ecosystems on Earth. Larger than the Brazilian rainforest, the boreal is the nursery for countless migratory birds and endangered species.
Government and stakeholders can look back with pride at the approach we all took in managing the oil sands deposit and the consistent and acceptable picture we have created from whatever perspective you look at it.
Heather Kennedy, and this lady I know very well from Suncor, is now in the government and in the area of approvals. So what does that say to you?
Well, it's not only unusual, it's completely unacceptable. We have now someone who's a senior official with Suncor has been made in deputy minister responsible for development around Fort McMurray, and Suncor is still paying her salary. And the conflict of interest here is so thick you couldn't cut it with a knife.
Right now, what we have is a government that is basically industry's best friend. And they will not lift a finger that will do anything to harm industry in any way.
Our environmental rules, although they're very good, are rarely enforced. The government gives water away to companies without charging a fee. There are very, very few violations or prosecutions on environmental issues, whether it has to do with air pollution or water pollution.
Tar sands production is going to quadruple over the next 20 years or so. The tar sands are a very interesting example of end-to-end environmental degradation, whether it be excess use of water, whether it be toxic sludge that's out there affecting ecosystems, or whether it be greenhouse gas emissions.
Tar sands production uses enough natural gas to heat 3 million homes and spews out as much greenhouse gas in a day as 1.34 million cars.
There's nowhere else on Earth where we're talking about destroying an area the size of Florida. There is nowhere else on Earth where you have toxic ponds that are so big that you can now see them from space.
What we are doing is probably the greatest form of moral carelessness you can find on the planet at the moment. We now have 60 kilometers of toxic lakes all along the Athabasca River. And what we know at this point in time is that we know that every single one of these tailings ponds leaks. They were, after all, only made out of sand.
You look at the reclamation technologies and the success that we've had with our tailings reduction operation. We just reclaimed the first tailings pond, and we've been in this business for 45 years.
I've spoken with environmental officers for the Alberta government who have been frustrated to tears because they have filed reports, have caught polluters year in, year out, and nothing ever happens. It gets to a certain point at the political level and they kill the investigation. The government has devolved its responsibilities towards monitoring what's happening there to a privately controlled consortium. It's controlled by industry, having private data that I can't get if I want to analyze it, telling the government what is happening there. It's completely out of control.
All our perspectives, what we should be doing is putting people first and realizing that the price of this absolute unabated development that's going on, not just in the tar sands but all over the world, is perhaps getting to be too big a price to pay.
A lot of the dirty energy economy is not just subsidized by hidden tax benefits, by access to public lands for free. It is subsidy by people's lungs and by their own bodies when the water and air that they depend on become the dumping grounds for private interest. What this really has to do with is big people picking on small people and assuming they can get away with it. It is bullying at the worst level, and it puts people who cannot protect themselves in harm's way. And that is maddening.
In 1967, so this is our 45th year of operating in the region. You know, we view ourselves as a founding member of the community, and there's no company on this planet that puts more importance on this community than Suncor.
Alberta's Liberals say tainted water leaked from an oil sands plant into the Athabasca River was kept secret for months. The opposition released a report today saying the leak from Suncor's wastewater pond happened last fall and that residents downstream were not told about it until 2 weeks ago.
I don't know when they were told, and that's one of the things I want to find out for sure is were the people notified, and again, what was the level of toxicity.
Tar sands generate a number of toxic chemicals hazardous to life. More disturbing is that these pollution levels are rising.
Tar sands are not standard oil. They are full of all sorts of very nasty things that we do not want in our world.
When you put arsenic and PAHs together, the carcinogenic effect can increase by 8 to 18-fold. And this is exactly what we have in the water and in the sediments of the river and in the delta.
If you continually put billions of liters of tailings into ponds every day, 1.8 billion liters per day, where's it going to go?